The Big Red One, starring Lee Marvin, Robert Carradine, Mark Hamill.
I've got two parts to this.
Oh, God.
One, I hated it with a passion. And two, I have deep reverence for it. We're going to talk about The Big Red One.
Awesome.
You were just saying off camera how much you love it.
I love this, yes.
And as a film, if you were to like evaluate it as a film and things like that, it wouldn't hold up very well at all.
Nope.
But because of how real it was, everything that's beneath it, the director, this is World War II. Yeah, this is World War II. His experiences. The Big Red One obviously is a real thing, and it's so there's two parts to it for me.
What I love about it is, yes, it's a fictional thing, but it still speaks about the harsh realities of the war. And, and I love the significance of the Big Red One. This started in 1819 or whatever with the Signia, with the Red One. And I love the fact that, it has gone, the 1st Infantry has gone on throughout time and is still continuing even today in Fort Riley. So, it says a lot about, and with Samuel Fuller being a war correspondent himself, writing about his experiences, I kind of loved, I loved that backdrop of
how they put in the writer.
Yeah. And what I also loved about this film is I think that each character was typecasted beautifully. I love it.
Do you even think, what was his name now as the character? He was the writer in it.
Zab.
Is it Zab?
It's Zab. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I don't have it in front of me, but he is a comedian, essentially. Mm-hmm. He's in some of the weird stuff
films,
as a comedian and things, and to see him here doing that was like he was in Porky's and stuff like that. It's like, and you see him here,
Revenge
and it's like,
of the Nerds.
this is Revenge of the Nerds. Oh, it was Porky's, right? He was in.
I don't believe he was in Porky's.
Okay, maybe
he was
wasn't
in Revenge
Porky's,
of the Nerds.
But yeah, Revenge of the Nerds and a couple of those other weird comedies. But no, I think you're right. It wasn't Porky's, but it's just very weird to see that. But he did such a good job.
He did, and what I liked about it too was that not only was he the writer, but I loved how they narrated. He was doing the narration of it too, and he had that cocky New York type thing. And some of the other characters, I have to tell you, especially with Mark Hamill as playing Griff. I actually loved Mark Hamill more in this movie than I did in the Star Wars series. I just think that there showed an element of him, him being the sharpshooter, but they also kind of showed a little bit more of a vulnerable part of him too. And I don't know. I really think that all the characters were really typecasted perfectly. But obviously Robert Carradine's character was the most, and then Serial, the Sicilian. He was kind of funny too. But Lee Marvin being this old craggy sergeant, I really think that what a perfect grumpy man. Type.
Totally.
Hey, totally Lee Marvin, and I am a big Lee Marvin fan to begin with. And there again too, even as crotchety as he is, they showed that human element of him at the very end.
Yeah.
So that the empathy piece, and this movie had a lot of. I think this movie had a lot of funny parts, had a lot of serious parts. Obviously, Rommel's on there. They're chasing Rommel. But then they have these kind of fun little divisions of, the pregnancy, the
pussy.
Yeah,
That's pushing. I'm like, what? What's going on in this thing right now? You know what I had to do too? I had to look it up on YouTube. Like, is this for real? I'm like, there's no way. But yeah, it's real.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
so
okay, that was a good one.
Now, granted,
from a film perspective, that was perfect. Even though it probably wasn't real life, like it wouldn't be that hilarious. But
no, not at all.
Yeah,
not at all. And like I was telling you earlier that the runtime, the original runtime, 2 hours and 42 minutes.
He first submitted 4 hours.
Yeah, and then they
and then he cut it back to 2.5.
And then they cut it back even more.
And then he had to cut it back even more.
So there's a lot of different. When I was doing my research for this, there's all kinds of red ones out there, and I'm just kind of like, oh my god. And the one that I actually hit on was the long extended version, and I was like, jeez.
Oh sure.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this movie probably could have been told in about an hour and a half. I mean, honestly.
Even the regular version that that kind of came out in theaters is what I watched. It should have been a half an hour shorter. They drug way too many things out. It was kind of weird. So that's what I mean from like a film perspective. It just doesn't hold up.
It would never make it in the theater today.
No, even back then, if they would have cut that down even 20, 25 minutes and really condensed some of those stories, it would have probably done twice as well.
Yeah. Because
of just 35th anniversary of, D-Day, stuff like that.
Well, and I think why it was so successful at the in the 80s when it was, because I think there wasn't the release date was on July 18th, and I think what made it really successful is that there wasn't a lot of war movies out there.
Right.
At that time. At that time, and and that really appealed to the male audience.
For sure.
Because there's all kinds of these rom-coms out there. So this is kind of a little different, kind of has that manly aspect on it. Do I see a lot of females liking this? No.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. But there again, I think I identified with the characters. I kind of really liked the character piece. Not so much the timepiece that it's at, because they're jumping all over the place.
Yeah, that was hard to keep track of.
They're in Italy, they're in Africa.
Yeah.
They're jumping.
Yeah.
So
they sort of made you remember what the names were, and I had to back it up a couple of different times. That was a little rough. So if you're like sitting in the theater when it came out, watching it, I would have been lost. It was hard to keep up with. Oh, where is this? Wait a minute. How did they get there?
Well,
so it's confusing.
And it was kind of a jump because they only just gave you a date.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, and then you had to kind of pick up like, oh yeah, that's Italy.
Yeah.
And then when you go back, and when I went back and did, kind of research Samuel Fuller, and then it was kind of like, okay, so 1918 starting out, and then I could see the timepieces unfolding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Again, the reverence I have for what people went through with this reality is incredible. I mean, can never thank them enough. I mean, most of them are gone now, but the reality is that they did a lot of remarkable things for the entire world. So that reverence is deep. I just wish they would have tightened things up from a film perspective. I think more people, probably not Gen Z maybe, but, Gen X for sure, would really appreciate something like this, and we would understand history a little bit better.
Well, and once again, doing my research on this, like I think I shared with you previously, I've seen this movie 5 times. It is kind of one of my favorites just because of the characters. But, when you go back into the history of it and you look at the, Normandy for D-Day, 23,000 casualties, but then the next day, 3,000 came in to kind of relieve. You know, I mean, I kind of like more of the historical part of it. You know, I like hearing those numbers. I like hearing, you know, how many that we actually lost, because it does make it real that, you know, despite the fact that this is a fictional, you know, it's
so much of it based on real events.
And that we literally lost 23,000 Americans.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's huge. And, you know, in society today, in the generation today, they don't get that.
No. They think their life is hard because, you know, the
Wi-Fi went out.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. It's bizarre. One of the things that really hit me pretty deeply is that this was filmed in Israel.
Yes.
And the
tanks were
right.
Yep.
You know, so, but even more so, the actors were from Israel, the extras.
The extras.
And they were putting on Nazi uniforms.
I did read that.
How wild would that be, especially that close? 35 years? I mean, those are people that certainly had relatives that were involved in that.
Yep.
I mean, that's wild.
That's
I mean, that
bold.
gives me goosebumps
That's
right now.
bold.
Yeah,
like,
that's wild.
Because I was reading that too, because I was kind of interested in, you know, the location piece, you know, because I think location is everything.
Yeah.
You know, it makes or breaks a film. And yeah, I was like, when I was reading that wow, they actually filmed this in Israel. And then, you know, the tanks, the Tiger tanks were actually modified, you know. I was like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
Wow. You know.
And then the true events where they did they dug the foxholes in and they actually, the tanks drove over them. They talked about that was the only time that in like that whole scenario of the war that they could just scream at the top of their lungs and get all that anxiety out, and no one would hear them. That was like a true thing.
Yeah,
that's
well,
that's
you know, I don't know how comfortable I would be. Take a little.
Have you been around a running tank before?
I have actually been inside a tank.
With it running?
Not no, just with it.
So I've been near tanks with them running, and they are extremely loud.
I have heard that.
So you could scream when
no,
you're
I
certainly
actually got
when
to
you're underneath
kind of
it.
sit in there, and you know, that's where my size kind of came in handy.
Sure.
I could fit right in.
Yeah. It's like a little mouse in
I
there,
know,
right?
I was quite comfortable.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned Mark Hamill. I don't think he's a very good actor myself. I really like Star Wars. I grew up loving Star Wars. You know, we talked about we're going to do, in fact, one of the Star Wars that were 1980. I loved it, but I'm not really. I love his voice acting, but as an actor, he doesn't sell it for me. So I just have to.
I actually did. I kind of thought he fit the role of Griff well. You know, this kind of lone sharpshooter. You know, kind of comes off. He comes off being arrogant, but he's really not.
Right.
You know, I mean, there's an element underneath there. You know, and it kind of came out when he actually broke down. You know, I mean, I kind of like that. I mean, and like I said, I'm just obviously, yes, you know, he made his his grand whatever in the Star Wars series, but I didn't like him in there.
He didn't make the Star Wars series.
No, I
for
thought
sure.
he was like,
it was like.
I think more Harrison Ford and
for
whatever,
sure, yeah.
You know,
I mean,
I really thought that I think he did a really good job as Griff. No, Griff was not one of my favorite characters in this movie, but I thought he did a good job.
No, I understand where you're coming from, but yeah, man, that's all I have on this one. I mean, I've got a bunch of notes, but I think I tied a lot of them into it and things. It was kind of neat though. Call of Duty, the big red one, came out in 2005. That's kind of a neat historical fact that even a video game recognizes that this is how powerful the big red one is.
The red one is the infantry.
And so I thought that was really cool too.
And I just love the fact that it still is continuing, and which is I think is which says a lot about our infantry.
Yeah.
You know, and even, you know, like one of the Army songs about the big red one. And I'm really kind of surprised that, you know, because like I said, I think it's more targeted towards the male audience, but I'm really surprised it made $7.2 million US dollars. So I didn't think that number would be as big.
Yeah.
I honestly did not think that number would be big.
Yeah. So when you calculate that, I wonder how that would work out to be like today's dollars. You know, that's got to be
Well, you got to look at
1980.
movie tickets back then versus
Right. And so I suppose that would probably be in the neighborhood of 5 or 6 times that number today, which would also mean the budget was 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
So it made money. It's good.
It did. It did.
It's still, you know, it's still available today.
It is.
That's fun.
Yep.
There's a lot of good things about it for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of negative things about it, but
Oh, come on now.
it's fine.
I
like
it.
Lee Marvin. I do like him. I wish so. At the beginning, when he was in World War I, I wish that they
very
would have.
first scene?
Yeah. I wish though that he would have looked a little bit more that age in World War II, because that would have been more believable for me.
Yes.
That was
But I like the correlation when they had that very first scene to the very last scene.
Yeah.
Tell him that.
absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
I really kind of liked how
Yeah.
they tied. It was a perfect ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That first scene, black and white,
Where-
you know, they should have had a younger Marvin.
Even if it wasn't him.
I know.
Even
Yeah, a
so,
different actor
but it
playing
was-
a young
yeah,
Lee Marvin.
Yeah.
I
But
agree.
no, that's great. What else you got? Anything?
No, I mean, like I said, I kind of like it. I love the fact that, the one scene in there that really kind of tore at me was, once again, Lee Marvin knowing that this kid is shell-shocked.
Yeah.
And knowing this kid's dying and he's burying this kid.
Yeah.
That really showed the empathy part. Also the childbirth, that was, you're seeing that human aspect
Yes.
of these rugged Army men.
Yeah.
My favorite, of course, was, the condoms on the gun, and I mean.
In the water,
you
like
went,
that. They were
going
like,
to get
yeah,
water
I
in
gotta-
it, so, I mean, so there was those comic moments.
Yeah.
To kind
Which
of.
is real life,
Yes.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
like I said, I liked it. But I'm sure a lot of other females would not like this, but
Yeah.
I really kind of dug this film.
Well, hey, you females out there, tell us what you think. What do you think of the big red one? You even know what it is? I didn't know what it is until we collaborated and we put this together so that I would watch this. Now, next week, Sherry has to watch one that I have a feeling she might not like as well as I do. So make sure you join us next week, too. Or you can email us at legitq@maddysmoviemix.com. That just makes sure that I get to see your comments, because I'm not really great at always, surfing the internet and looking at the comments. So send me an email, legitq@maddysmoviemix.com, and I'll pass along whatever comment you have for Sherry. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.